Okay, welcome everybody. This is the second West Slope Startup Week, which is really exciting. Last year was really great, and this year the numbers are showing to be quite a bit bigger than last. So a lot of successes. Everybody's really happy. The energy is really high, especially given the circumstances in the world. Um, Startup Week is virtual all month long, all for the rest of July, every Tuesday and Thursday, plus some more informal events in between those days, with tons of opportunity for all of you to network. Alex and I were just talking about how it's a bummer. The main downside to this being virtual is that we can't quite network the same, but I'd encourage everybody to join the West Slope Startup Week Slack group, because it's a great way to find people that you might have met or find other speakers and reach out to them directly. I'm Alex, hopefully maybe in your last slide you have a way to contact you directly, but if not, we'll find a way for everybody to get a hold of Alex if they have any follow-up questions after the event. There's over 70 sessions at Startup Week throughout the month, and all those sessions are crafted by and for the entrepreneurial community, to sort of by you, for you. The goals of Startup Week are just simply to learn from each other, share stories, gain new skills, and connect new and old friends. A little bit of logistics and housekeeping. The session is being recorded as of a minute ago, so please be cognizant of anything you might say and questions. You can mute your microphones, or please mute your microphones unless you have a question to ask. Again, Slack is a great way to connect with people if you want to connect with one of the other participants or the speaker after the fact. In terms of asking questions during the session, please use the chat feature of Zoom. I'll be on the other end of that, trying to either answer your question as soon as I can or aggregate those questions for Alex. So use chat when you have a question, just so we can help manage the feedback. And finally, we'd like to thank the sponsor for the tech track. CART out of Grand Junction sponsored this whole tech track. This is the second talk in the tech track of Startup Week, so we're really excited. Alex is out of Grand Junction. Is that your home base, right, Alex?
I'm out of Durango.
I'm sorry, Durango. On Tuesday, we had Uray. Now we have Durango, and I think every one of our talks comes from a different town across the Western Slope, which is really exciting, because a big part of West Slope Startup Week is connecting all of our communities so we can grow stronger together. And that's about it. I'm going to let Alex introduce himself. The one thing I'd say about him is that he has a lot of years of experience trying to help companies position themselves on an online marketplace from rural Colorado. So I think it's a really valuable perspective for us all to learn from. So take it away, Alex.
All right. I appreciate you all for being here, and thank you, Justin, and Western Slope Startup Week. I think this is a really cool idea to get business owners and some of the creatives that are scattered around to be connected, be sharing info and helping each other out. So I'm really excited to be a part of this, and I'm going to share my screen real fast. And all right, can you guys see my screen? This is Draft Beer Specialist, and there's two.
Yep.
All right, let me get my comments to come back. That's funny, it all disappeared again. All right, there's the chat. Okay, chat is back, and I can see myself, and you guys can see my screen. So just to tell you real briefly, on the left side, I have my notes, so you guys can follow along. You can work a little faster than I am. You can read ahead, and you can copy this or do what you like with it. I have sent it through the notes as well. So in the comments or chat area, you can hopefully see this Word document there. And so I'm going to be jumping back and forth between some examples of live sites that I work on or that I have colleagues that work on, and then talk about some of these bullet points and why they apply to you as a business owner. in Colorado. Um, First thing I'll say, when talking about online business, there's a lot of hype in terms of like passive income and a lot of these like make quick money really easily schemes. And that's not really something that I like work with or do or promote. So right here at the beginning of my disclaimer, business is hard. There's no shortcuts. It takes a lot of time and energy and calculated thought and realistic analysis of the environment around you. So we're going to talk about that type of stuff today, but there's going to be a lot of work involved. Essentially, it's kind of the amount of information that I'm going to expose you guys to. It would take a person or a small group like a year or two to act on. Say you started with nothing and then wanted to complete everything on this list. So this is a big, intimidating list. But some more high-level conceptual things is what I'm going to be going over. The second thing in the disclaimer is all the things that I'm going to show you are other businesses' work and things that they paid for and built and designed. So please understand these are for references only. Please don't copy images or text or anything from these businesses. But what we'll talk about is why I feel that they're strong brands, why they have a strong value proposition, and here in Colorado, why they fit into a niche. So that's what we'll be talking about. So please respect that. Yeah, and then the third point right here, or I guess second point, is why go into online business? And online business is something that I was in a way kind of forced into by choosing to live in Durango. And I came here in 2007, got a degree from the Forks doing environmental studies and sociology, and then traveled internationally for a while and came back and started a photography video company because I wanted to be self-employed and work in the arts. And after about 4 years of doing that and really struggling and pushing my business and growing a bunch of computer skills and media skills, I found out that web design, there was a more interesting need. And essentially clients I would propose and say, hey, I would like to take pictures of your business and talk about it and write a blog. Essentially, these business owners were like, I hate my website. Can you just rebuild it for me? And so essentially, I said yes to a bunch of things like this over years and followed the need in the service sector in this area. And so I've moved around quite a bit and developed a diverse array of skills to help people sell online. And ultimately, as a photographer, I struggled in Durango, and web design ultimately, like the hourly paid better and people took it more seriously. So I continued developing those skills and I got more into e-commerce and I continued to travel. And I did a stint around the world, which was really fun. It was about 220 days of working abroad. And after that, I learned that if I could work while traveling abroad, I can work from a little town called Durango. So that's the biggest point I want you guys to remember is like, if you can travel and work, you can work from like little town that you live in and care about. And that's a big part of why I like to give this talk and talk about this. And one of the biggest keys to that is here is remote and location independent work. So essentially over the last 5 years, I have personally developed a skill set that allows me to show up one time to complete a job or show up never to complete a job. And those are the only services that I offer. Does that make sense? Give me a little head shake for that. Yeah, right? Like the entire premise of this model is to not ever clock in, right? In a physical way. You know, I could clock in at 10 p.m. from wherever I am in the world as long as I have an internet connection. So maintaining a tremendous amount of freedom in remote and location independent work. And a big part of that is in design. And so we'll talk about designing systems that allow you to essentially serve, you know, part of the US or part of the globe from a remote place. It could be the beach in Thailand, could be Budapest, could be small mountain town in Colorado. So that's really why I like to think about it. Um, and as far as not having a physical storefront, you reduce a lot of overhead and startup cost. Also, too, with choosing remote and location independent work, you have the opportunity to travel to places that have different exchange rates. So, as an example, I worked in Thailand for a couple winters to save money. Essentially, there I could live for about $700 a month and not cook for myself, not clean, not do my own laundry. And I could save a bunch of money and put that money into my business as I was generating US dollars through PayPal. I was spending Thai baht on the street. So I'll talk more about that later, but leveraging like kind of a low overhead area to do remote work, you can start a business and divert that cash to the business. So that's something that I did in the past, and a lot of people in this community have done too, when you could travel more easily. Um, cool. So that's kind of why. If you guys want me to like have a question on the why, let me know before I keep talking. Um, but yeah, I think all of us have a lot of that in common. We have a particular place in this instance that we want to live, and we want to be able to stay there and not have to drive to Denver or whatever to work necessarily. So part of that's in the design. So remember that. All right, doesn't look like there's any questions, so I'll keep going. Um, one of the biggest things that my father's a business guy up on the Front Range, and throughout my young adult life, he highly encouraged me to really follow the need in the world and balance that with the drive, personal drive that I have to maybe pursue something like poetry or painting. Maybe that's going to be a hard living and maybe is more on the line of a hobby, depending on how serious you are about it, which is something as an artist I've struggled with a lot. And with that struggle, I've also continued to like follow the need. And in my case, to talk about my business model, I fill the need of helping business owners who produce physical goods and they specialize in producing those goods. I help them sell those goods online because they usually don't have time to manage all of those other tasks because they're producing things. And depending on the industry you're in, that the role of helping do that could be very valuable. So again, I fulfill the need of managing all these small problems business owners have on the internet, and I can reiterate that's very clear. Over time, I have developed a demographic and a target industry that I am, after kind of falling into it, I've been continuing to target this industry in particular. For the last 3 or 4 years, I've worked in the hemp and CBD industry, which is really fascinating. And the reason I got into it was because it's high risk. And generally, if there's anything like more contentious or like taboo in a way, people like are going to want to talk about it and want to spend money on it, which is kind of funny, right? So just the nature of the cannabis industry being rebellious and cutting edge and new were all attractive reasons for me to get into it. And also that being that mainstream companies like GoDaddy and Squarespace, they don't need the money from cannabis companies. And because it's high risk, they just deny the services to people. So if you wanted to start a CBD company and you called GoDaddy and some of these Paygate people, a couple years ago, you get denied. And so I was having clients who were, people approaching me, telling me this story, and I started saying yes to these jobs, following the need. And it turned out to be quite the wellspring of clients that now I get through mostly just referral base, working with the owners of these companies and helping them out in a technician type of a role, like bringing in the truck to the mechanic and I just fix the truck and then they keep working, that type of a relationship. And my name gets passed around within that niche. And I can more easily solve problems for everybody within that niche. And I've developed more of a specialty. So that's a little bit about my story and how I talk about it, but that's something I want you guys to make sure you can reiterate and define. who is your demographic, is it niche, and what is the twist as well? I like that too. Like for me, I do e-commerce with the twist as I work with hemp companies, right? In particular. Um, there's a guy who I use an example. He sells product on eBay and he was selling Tupperware, but the twist on his business design was that he was buying pallets of Tupperware and then repackaging them into packages of 7 to correspond with 7 days of the week. And then he does a bunch of content promotion about health and fitness and buying 7-day Tupperware packs on eBay. And he makes like $600 a day while he's sleeping, all automated. So the idea of taking a really simple idea and a twist. In that case, it was repackaging Tupperware to meet kind of the health food scene, getting it to fit that. That's the twist. So always being able to identify that and talk about that. Key thing a lot of people like miss is that, like, how are you an authority figure or an influencer in the industry? And for me, again, I'll talk about my business model. This is where my portfolio comes in my references, and the fact that my name kind of moves around in these different circles. For other people, that can be things like reviews and testimonials, any type of video that you have of people talking about your product or services. I call it street credibility as well. So being sure to get examples of your work. And to move on to be visual for a second, we'll talk about the perfect pour. So this website over here is for a client named Dirk here in town. He's an awesome guy. He works with ScaFab in the past, and now he does most of the installations in town at the restaurants we like to enjoy in Durango and around. To talk about credibility quick, I'm going to go to the installations section of his website. So this is a page we built just to, let's see if it goes. All right, there it goes. So here we have all these kind of exemplary places that he has installed taps, right? And part of this, we are doing what's called geo-targeting by adding the city name. So this is really important because if we typed in draft beer installation Silverton, he would probably show up. Telluride, Ignacio, all these places that he's done installations, we put the town. So we are geographically targeting his services and showing street credibility at the same time. And then we back that up with photos, okay? Showing his work, showing people using the taps and the bars, and he does various styles. We try to keep this updated to reflect the different places and kind of local establishments that he works with. So this page serves a couple purposes, to show street credibility, and then also geo-targeting, which I'll talk a little more about here in a minute. If we go back to the homepage, this page we designed to be a really good example of a landing page and veer away from a traditional homepage for a website. A traditional homepage for a website was like an index where you would get to other things from. Instead of a landing page now is more considered like a brochure and a sales-oriented walkthrough of your services. And this page is a really good example. So again, the target demographic would be, say, a new restaurant opener or an owner who has an existing restaurant that needs to update the refrigerated keg and beer line tap system. And essentially, if you look here, custom draft beer dispensing perfected. We are trying to be an authority figure, right? By using this word, perfect pint of beer. If we move down a little bit, in the story of our perfectness, we help reduce waste and improve quality, which this is, I would consider, a pain point. Wasting product means your margin goes away. That's what a business owner sees. If you have bad quality food or drink, you get bad reviews and people don't come back. So in a way, we're hitting pain points right there. And then we do the opposite. right after that. We hit a pain point and then we say, but we have the solution. By boosting your revenue, we help you retain customers. We got better quality product. And then right underneath that, we go into a little more detail, but also really bulleted and easy to understand information about the services offered. And then to finish up with the last block is to get an estimate. So this is a great example of a sales-based landing page that leads you through a story of the business owner's needs. It is all targeted to the business owner. So yeah, that's to, do you guys have any questions on that real quick before I go back to the notes for a minute? On a landing page or on street credibility, anything I've said? Okay, it looks like we're good. A big part of the groups that I work with, a lot of businesses skimp on reliability, trust, and security, and kind of the quality nature. Um, I'm a huge fan of, like, if you have a great restaurant and great food, you should have the most beautiful sign on the front of that restaurant. If you have a crappy, old, derelict sign, but you provide great food, I think you're doing an injustice to the actual service that you offer. To give some quick examples of that for perfect pour, for security reasons, we have the HTTPS up here. You guys see that? That is super important for having an encrypted connection between your website and your clients. So if you're taking any type of data or credit card information, processing transactions, or form entries, you should have a secure website. So most people do now, because there's been a big push to get the internet encrypted. But if you have a website or see a website that's not encrypted, that's a sign, yeah, that they're not really paying attention. Like, they have not crossed all their T's and dotted all their I's. As far as reliability, trust, and security. So for the next one, we'll move over to Four Corners Cannabis, which is a hemp company here in Durango, that I really enjoy working with. He's a great group of people. And here's a great example of showing reliability and trust. They showed Forbes, Esquire, NBC, and Culture Magazine. They're referencing here. They're well-known publications that lend street credibility, right? So talk about that, tout that, get people to talk about your product. Again, here they're going with a third-party trust pilot, trust review system, which is cool. Again, that's street credibility. That's what they're going for there. Down here at the bottom, I'm a huge proponent of iconography and using icons to convey important information, mainly reliability, trust, safety, like the fact that we're a legitimate business. So down here at the beginning, in the first area, we have credit cards accepted, logos that you know and recognize. This one right here, we talked a lot about priority shipping with USPS, with cannabis products. People are like, well, this is weird buying this. And we wanted to, convey the idea that it's your local postman is going to bring it to you. So we put that on there as like the sign of consistency and reliability. We have Norton antivirus security, letting people know that, and then some touting products, being Colorado made and stuff, third-party lab tested. So I'm a fan of icons. Just real quick, I'll show you the gist of this. In this world, icons are kind of funny because you want a certain amount of consistency, but you shouldn't be like plagiarizing or just straight up infringing on other people's stuff. So here's an example of two of my clients that I had two different graphic designers design two different sets of icons, conveying similar ideas, using different shapes and different colors. There's a lot of ways you can run with that. But so I encourage you to think about the icons. And another good example is down here I made these like third-party lab tested icons, like kind of safety badges, things like that. Think about what type of product or service you offer and how you can bolster any insecurities that potential buyers would have by doing that. Let me look at my list quick. So another part of that, just the reliability part, is having like up here we have the email, down on the bottom, the footer, we have the phone number and everything. So this is for another like e-commerce store phone numbers right there, making it really easy to contact people. Here again, it's like, oh, we take the credit cards that you probably carry in your wallet, safely, reliably, in an encrypted way. We have a safe and secure checkout icon too. So bolstering things like that, and then we also have a security icon up here in our URL for this SSL certificate. So that's just briefly on the things that I look for in trusting a business and really feeling like they care about my privacy and about my data. Again, if you show that you do care, you're going to bolster any insecure buyers who are maybe interested, but they maybe don't want to give up their information on the internet unnecessarily. So we can support those people by using things like icons and touting the fact that you have a secure site. Um, so essentially, to go back to our list, I like to think of all these ingredients as a soup, and that includes what's your need, that you're actually, before you have a service that you're trying to offer, you should identify the need and how strong that need is. So that's one of the major ingredients of the soup. Can you target your demographic? Is it a niche? Is there a twist? And then you put all these things together, and I think you have a solid business model in the online world. You guys have any questions on that real quick before I move on to the next section? Super clear, nice. 10-4, that's awesome. So here are some tips that I've learned looking at the notes real quick. I'm going to talk about shipping and distributing from Colorado and in Southwest Colorado in particular. I've done a little experimenting with this and worked with other businesses, and it is challenging. And so I have like a filter. I would want to help you overlay your business model to see if it's going to be a really good fit, and see if this soup you have the right ingredients. And if you're shipping items, are they feasibly shippable? Size, weight, perishability. I was trying to ship perishable goods or get them shipped in, and that was quite a pain. I had to drive to Albuquerque a couple times to go get things, and then move them really fast. So depending on what it is, it could make or break the business model essentially. I titled this workshop CBD as a case study because CBD fits in really well. It is a product that can be produced and grown in Colorado. It can be processed here, packaged here, and then distributed all over the country or all over the world. And CBD is a recurring product, which means that once you consume the bottle of it, you probably are going to want another one if you want more products. Whereas I used to sell high-end photography for a while, and if I sold somebody a great shot of the Grand Canyon and I did a good job, they're probably not going to come back and get another one because wall space like doesn't just appear at your house. People unless you move or something. So the idea that CBD health and wellness products, nutrition products are recurring because they're consumable. That's a huge idea and way to filter an industry. I think jewelry is a really strong industry as an example to talk about in Colorado, because it is small and packageable. It doesn't perish. You can ship it in the winter. If it gets delayed by a week in the snow, it's probably not a huge deal. High-end food products, especially dried food. You guys know Sarva Superfood here in town. They're an awesome business who sells online, making high-end powdered food protein products and things like that. And anything specialty, hard to find, small components, small parts, with a 3D printer or a CNC machine, you can make a lot of really interesting things that, again, if you find a need and you have the designs and you can market them, there's all kinds of interesting things you can make and produce. Just as, again, general examples, I would say a bad example would be things large, breakable, heavy, or perishable. A friend of mine had a great idea of taking old farm equipment and turning it into camping like Dutch ovens that are used for rafting. And so you can cook huge meals on open fires with these pieces of old farm equipment. And they're really heavy and cumbersome. And I was like, this is a great idea, but you'd have to go to like a trade show with a horse trailer and sell these in Phoenix or something physically yourself, because the margins on shipping a big piece of iron that's awkward shaped like wouldn't be there. Just getting it out of the county, I don't think would be feasible. So think about things like that. I'm working with a guy who makes large furniture, and that's an interesting example of how to move small wooden things, even like a cutting board. Shipping cutting boards out of Durango is really challenging because of the packaging dimensions and things like that. So you got to be really smart and essentially backtrack everything from the available post packaging. You go find the box that you can afford and you try to fit your product into that box, which is a kind of an interesting constraint that I'm working with right now. So be thinking about that because it does, whereas jewelry is really easy, things like that, CBD, health and wellness products, they fit into a small standard square box, right? It's going to save you a ton of time and energy and money. So think about things like that. Target basket size is really important to consider when doing online retail. They say the target is $60 to $200 because in that range, it's an impulse buy. It's worth you driving to the post. If you have one order that day, making 75 or $100, it's worth driving to the post office. If it's $5, $10 order, it's probably not going to be worth driving to the post, and then they're going to stack up orders. You're going to have complaints, and if you're over $200, people are going to call in more and want to make sure that the product that they're buying is exactly what they want. Think of like a nice stereo or something. People are going to call and make sure everything is going to fit and exactly the way they want it. So you spend more time on the phone, and it's less of an impulse buy. So that's something to remember and target is, say you're making shampoo. There's a friend of mine selling kind of product like that, and retail for bottle was like $15. So I recommended he sell 3 or 4 packs and maybe a sampler pack so you can figure out which one you like, and then you buy 4 bottles online or you buy none, is the premise, to get the basket size above it so that he's packing up 4 bottles into one box and there's a decent margin on that order. Helping your customers know what your minimum basket size is really important. I know for a lot of the local farms around here, doing either like pickup or delivery, CSA type of things, they have $50 to $100 minimum orders established on the site. So you can't come and just buy, 1 bag of spinach and have them drop it off at your house. You got to buy like a basket of goods. So that's something to keep in mind. What is your target basket size and how can you promote people to get to that target? One way people do that is by offering free shipping. If you notice like if you go to Patagonia.com or any major clothing store, they're gonna have free shipping on orders over $60 or $75 because that is their minimum basket size to kind of justify fulfilling the order in a broad term and make money. So they offer free shipping at that price point to incentivize that. So keep that in mind. That's a tool to incentivize that. There can be other tools to get there as well. One thing, just going back to real basic, if you're like a beginning business owner or an established one, there's a lot of instances where I see people who just cannot clearly articulate what it is that they do in a very clear, like elevator pitch type of a way. And then repeat that statement all over your website. That helps with search engines. It helps affirm. I try not to present myself as a jack of all trades that much. I really try to, if I have a landing page for a particular reason, I really try to be, an authority figure and an expert problem solver on that particular topic. So keeping things in mind like that is like, well, I'm a mechanic and, a musician and, a code wizard, but I don't advertise all those things or whatever. It confuses people in a way, right? So be clear about that. You may be good at a lot of things, but that it may be too much information in a way. Yeah, just again, reviewing what we went through earlier, testimonials, street credibility is always great. People really, really appreciate that. Any questions on this chunk about shipping around Colorado? Physical goods? Anybody have questions? Particular example? You want feedback on anything like that? All right. So I'll keep moving. Um, Last time I gave a talk, there were some questions about some SEO terms or like website terms, including SEO. So I'll briefly talk about that and give an example, just so you guys can wrap your head around that if you're not familiar with the term. Search engine optimization is how your website shows up in Google. So say we go to Google or we type in a service, um, and I'm going to type in best CBD in Philadelphia. And right here, we have the New Life CBD oils. That is these guys right here. Okay. So this is this website, and we are on the first page of Google in the #1 unpaid slot. So we don't pay money to be here, but the owner of this business paid a copywriter to write an article about his company being the best CBD oil in Philadelphia. And generally, when we talk about SEO, people do searches for things like, if they want product reviews, I'll be like best photo editing software. I'll type that into Google. So that was a particular phrase that we intended to perform well on, and we in fact did perform very well on this term. And we did that by crafting a title and a document that is human-oriented sales pitch, talking about how cool of a city Philly is and why we all live to live there. And, you know, we're the best CBD company in town, and heck yeah, we can ship it to you no matter where you are if you aren't lucky enough to live in Philly. So it's kind of a snarky article bragging about the town that we don't even live in. The owner and I don't live in Philly, which is also kind of funny. So we took best CBD in Philly intentionally, and both of us are from Colorado. And part of that is because we wanted to target a demographic that was not saturated. At the time we launched this site, Philadelphia and like the tri-state area, PA was just got onto recreational marijuana, and so there's a lot of interest in CBD and the non-psychoactive components of the cannabis plant. And so we decided, instead of targeting Colorado, where we're actually based, to target a place where we had friends and family. And so he has a bunch of family in Philly that he was sending product to anyways, and he wanted to continue doing that. And so we created a company that targets Philadelphia from Colorado to make it more feasible. So we didn't have to compete with all the cannabis companies in Colorado or California or around the West as they're popping up. So we picked that demographic intentionally. So that's a little bit of SEO and like, what's the word? So this would be called like unpaid copy in these ad slots, or they're not ad slots, these listings in the search engine with a title, and this is called like a meta, there's a meta title and a meta description. And so we target these words and there's an ultimate intention behind it. There's a lot you can talk. SEO could be its own hour-long talk, but I'll give you one more example for these guys. And in Google, I'm going to type in, is vaping CBD safe? Remember me talking about contentious things? Anytime there's like people disagree, if you can talk about that and kind of make a stand one way or the other, I recommend doing that. So in this case, this company did not want to sell vaping products because he personally deemed them unsafe. And so what we did was we had a lot of conversations about these smokable products being sold online and how we didn't like that and we didn't want to participate, but we should still take a stand and talk about it. So we had our copywriter, we paid him to write a 3-part series on the question of, is vaping safe and the health risks of vaping. And essentially at the end of the article, we deem this is why we don't sell these products, is because no, we don't feel they're safe. And if you're curious about the benefits of CBD, you should try a oil or tablet or a bubble gum or something that's not a smokable product. And here we are again on the first page of Google in the first slot. So this was an article, we paid $100 for the guy to write, and it's pulling in the tens of thousands of hits. So that's one way to think about SEO is you want to legitimately represent the products and services that you have very clearly and repeat that. And then you want to talk about your industry in a larger way and how you impact and influence the industry. And this is a great example. People have questions, people have concerns. Take a stand. It makes you stand out and people respect that. I think that's one reason people really appreciate Patagonia clothing is because they are snarky and have an attitude and take a side. And it makes people very loyal in that way. So that's a little bit on SEO stuff. It is important. You want to make sure that these snippets in Google are showing up correctly and are relevant. And if they're not, you need to work with your website or your website tech to straighten that out because these are really important. You want these to be readable by Google, but also readable by a human in a sales-oriented way. Like say, let's see what happens if I punch in my name. This is scary. So here's like my Google snippet. Here's on my about page. Builds and maintains websites and e-commerce stores located throughout the US. Yeah, so that's pretty relevant to me. Yeah, and there's more stuff going on. Here's my real estate page. Don't undervalue your home with home or rental with low quality photos. So there's a very sales oriented snippet and I manually put those in my WordPress site. If you have a WordPress site, there's a great plugin called Yoast that you can use to help do that. A lot of these website providers, whether it's Wix or Shopify or whoever, they will have these SEO meta title and meta tag input boxes, and you do want to fill those in on every page of your website because that will determine what shows up here in Google and how you're represented, which is important because that's often the first time a potential customer or client will get to interact with you, and you won't be able to interact back. So it's a very one-sided way for them to interact with your business, and so you want to have that be real polished. Cool, let me go back to my notes quick. Geo-targeting, this one I touched on with Fred and these guys at New Life. Targeting and demographic and geographic. We again targeted the tri-state area from Colorado, Philadelphia's premier CBD oil Colorado company. Targeting, so geo-targeting. Also, if we go back to Perfect Pour, the installations page where we were showing all these addresses, this is a really, really feasible way to geo-target. This is, again, being here in Colorado, in Southwest Colorado, we're very diverse, we're very spread out. We don't have one area that really defines us all. So in this case, we went through and listed all the towns that he has installations in. So that's an example of geo-targeting. And that will help you show up in the search engines because what that does is it helps define a geographic scope. And Google now is heavily leaning on where your location is to give you feedback in the searches and more relevant data based on your location. So I encourage everybody to really hammer on where they are and hammer the locations that they want to work in. And again, you could pick, if you made a wedding photography site for Honolulu, Hawaii, and put it on the internet and marketed it, you could probably be flying to Hawaii and taking jobs. Because the internet is like that. You don't necessarily have to work exactly where you are. You can also target different locations as well, places you want to work. There's a web firm that I used to work with that they would put landing pages up for all of these awesome vacation destination spots just so that the owners could go have meetings there with the clients, right? It was just, yeah, targeting who your audience is. You have a lot of control over that and with the text that you put on your website and geo-targeting. I talked a little bit about SSL certificates. That's the little lock icon up in your browser. Make sure you have one of those on your site. It's really easy to intercept that data if it's HTTP. And if it doesn't have the S, it's really easy to intercept. So if you're taking any type of transaction or important client data or form entries, you want to be secure. Any questions on those things before I move on again? Looking good. Okay. So I'm going to tell a brief overview of the different major types of online business that I've came across. While I was traveling and working in Thailand, I met a lot of other young entrepreneurs who call themselves digital nomads because they choose work that is location independent. And so they get to travel around the world and they get to live a very free lifestyle and very driven lifestyle, traveling and educating themselves and trying to be cunning in the online world and make justify your existence, so to speak, online. And so I'm going to list some just real 30,000 foot levels of types of online business, and you may see like which one yours is, or you kind of may be an in-between model. Sometimes people package a couple models together. For me, my model is I do hourly services. This is what I do, kind of any graphic design, web design person. Copy, translation is a really huge one. You can make great money translating documents in different fields. You could choose legal, you could choose medical, you could choose any type of thing and be translating documents from wherever and make it like a decent rate doing that. There's this awesome link right here. Everybody, if you're in an hourly service or you freelance, you should go to hellobonsai.com and check out the freelance rates. I'll show you guys real quick. This is something that I consult pretty often. So say I'm a graphic designer and I have 3 to 5 years of experience, it's going to show me what the average industry is charging. So you can see if you're leaving money on the table, you can see if you're on the high side based on your experience and where you live too. I usually go by the West Coast numbers. I price check Seattle and Denver because I find Durango is about as expensive as either of those. So I charge like I live there. So yeah, this is a great tool for hourly people. And to move back over here, my ex was a really good example of package-based services. She was bilingual and she would translate things from English to French for like advertisements, and she would do like a 1-minute clip for $75. So she escaped the hourly based service and got to package based service. A little more difficult for me to do because I do very big, long, complicated jobs. Whereas for her to crank out a 1-minute voiceover and do all the client fulfillment and everything, it would take her about 20 minutes. So that's pretty damn good margin, right? And incredibly good value for the client too, because she would crank them out really fast. And so she does 3 or 4 1-minute voiceovers a day, and then she clocks out of work, you know? So again, it's interesting way to package your package services are different than hourly. There's a few different ways of selling products online, and products that you make as opposed to other people make. I would determine just e-commerce is something like CBD where you're growing a product, you're growing a raw material, making a product out of it, labeling it, and then selling it all in-house. Crystal Reef Aquatics, these guys down here were really interesting because this was a guy with a CNC machine that ran all night, and then you had 2 people during the day glue the plastic together to make high-end custom saltwater aquariums. And again, this is about, you know, $60,000 machine or whatever that runs at night, and then people glue this stuff together and make really, really specialty high-end things out of real basic raw materials. And that company completely sold and is not owned by that guy anymore, which is in a way a big success. So say you're not making your own products, drop shipping is a really good example. Like for me personally, I want to be a business owner, but I don't want to have a warehouse to walk into. I never want to walk into a warehouse. I want to be on the beach in Thailand checking my email as infrequently as I feel like. And so the idea of drop shipping is building a relationship with different suppliers and essentially putting together your own storefront. Um, a good example that they used a lot is this guy was doing Tiffany lamps, and so he went around, found 3 different suppliers of Tiffany lamps, because again, this is a weird high-end thing, specialty thing. He found 3 suppliers, negotiated his own rates, and said, I'm going to build the best Tiffany lamp store and outcompete everybody. And I just want to forward invoices to you, and you ship directly to the client. And because of that, you'd take a less of a commission or less of a margin, because you're not warehousing and inventorying. But because of this, this dude can live in wherever he wants to live and run around and run multiple businesses like this. The idea of drop shipping is cool because you set up one and then you can set up another one once you kind of automate it. Because again, you're just forwarding invoices around in the warehouse, people actually fulfill. If you go to liquidbottles.com as a premise, I just love this. I have no affiliation with this group, but I love their business model. Their URL is awesome. It is like stupid simple and it's SEO rich. We sell anything that like you can put a liquid in, right? This is a great model, and I can't vouch for sure if this is a drop shipping model or not. I don't know, but to me, this is something you could drop ship. You build a really nice storefront, and you have a relationship with a few suppliers, and the suppliers send the boxes out, and you never touch the stuff. Other than probably for curating what products you carry on the site, the value of a drop shipping store is that it's curated. As opposed to like something like Amazon, where there's no barrier of entry and you could just sell junk. The idea of like making the best Tiffany lamp store is like, yeah, we only go for the absolute best, we're only going to list that. And so the value of a drop shipping store is, instead of buying directly from the supplier that sells everything and maybe doesn't care that much, is you have a relationship with the products, you are familiar with them, and you can give recommendations essentially. These are the best things that fit together, we've found. For a long time or short time, there's a lot of people getting into 3D printing, drop shipping sites for a while, because 3D printing was blown up, and so they'd sell you go find your own 3D printer setup that you like the most and then start reselling that because you understand it, you are an authority on it, and you can move those products with that more curated feeling than just selling whatever's available. So yeah, that's an idea. It can be really simple stuff. I know of another example of a guy who did that with selling the best rubber balloons, like party balloons. Of all the obscure products to pick, he picked party balloons because he was jaded buying balloons for his kids that they always popped. And he's like, I'm going to go contact every supplier in North America and find the best party balloons and then make the best party balloon website. And he's killing it, So that's the idea of creating a drop shipping site, is there's usually some personal inspiration or need that gets you into it. And it can be good to listen to that because that's what ultimately leads you to be more of an authority. So that's drop shipping. Again, you can talk a lot about that. Very fascinating idea. Ebooks and e-courses is the next thing as far as business models that you can run. There's a local gal here in Durango who does bird identification, and she put a class together, which I think is really cool. As far as the spectrum, I will say putting a class together or an ebook, there's a lot of time up front that you invest, and it can be a longer delay on the return based on that, because versus teaching one-on-one classes with people, you're making that $70 an hour, $100 an hour, or whatever. Doing a one-on-one versus the ebooks, you maybe somebody gets it for $20 and you got to sell 1,000 of them. So if you don't have a really follow-through plan of getting onto Amazon and hitting the bestseller list in some certain category, the return on those can be hard. A few people I know who've done ebooks and e-courses, it's usually their third or fourth one that actually kind of takes off. So something to keep in mind again is because you got to explore and figure out where the need is, and maybe you write a book on something people aren't actually that interested in. So something to keep in mind. E-courses are really good for, I think, people in the fitness world. If you're you own a gym or anything, you can do one-on-ones or courses over the internet. Which again, the one-on-ones just leads right down to the next one. Good friend of mine started a English teaching website called TOEFL Speaking Teacher, and the twist of him teaching English was that he teaches business English, and so he developed clients in Hong Kong and Brazil that would fly to LA or New York and felt intimidated because they had decent English, but they didn't understand maybe all the business room jargon and all the economic, abbreviations and just some of the, again, the business jargon. And so what he would do is he would talk with these guys for $100 an hour. And it was weird because it was at 3 o'clock in the morning because my friend was living in Thailand and these guys were in Brazil or Hong Kong or whatever. So he had to accommodate a very strange schedule, but he very quickly accelerated himself from being just an amateur English teacher on the internet to like associating with really, really affluent people all over the world. I mean, this guy was brilliant. Again, that's the twist, was he said, I want to teach business English. So his company has actually been bought out, and this is what it looks like because that's no longer a thing, which is also a cool success story. And that guy actually went on, I'll continue to talk about the same guy. He went on to do a content marketing business, which is the idea of talking about an area of information. And so this is his site over here. It's called The Third Wave. And what he does is he talks about responsible psychedelic use and the contentious nature of that around the world, okay? And so he is based in Lisbon at this time, which has all these drugs are decriminalized. So he can write about and talk about all this stuff from a legal standpoint and broadcast it around the world. And so this is a really interesting example of using a contentious topic to gather an audience. You get a bunch of people in front of you over time, and this guy's newsletter blew up. It started as like just a newsletter and very quickly became the authority figure on consolidating a lot of scientific information on traditional psychedelic use and then modern scientific analysis and research. And he's very artistically represented this. I think he's heavily laying on science and less so on the counterculture vibe that these things have. But again, it's controversial, it's contentious, and he is killing it because of that. And then there's this guy. So this is what it leads to, right? Is so he attracts your attention with a contentious topic, and here is what he offers you. So the idea with content marketing is that you get an audience in front of you and then you serve up a solution to their mutual problem. And in this case, is these people want to learn about stuff that you can't learn about. And so he's like, well, I'm willing to teach you. And since you want to learn, like, here's this course that's either, there's probably a basic one that's free and he gets your email address, and then you want to learn more, you can pay money, right? So it's like, there's free information to get you in the door and interested. And then over time, you identify with what their problems are. And then you essentially, that's how you monetize it, is by solving one of their problems. So another good example is like here, he's doing free podcasts, giving away information. But I know deeper in the website, you can pay money to buy his book too, right? So it's a mix of like, here's free information, and here's like, if you want all of it, here's our marketable product. So again, like if you're doing an e-course or an e-book, pairing that with content marketing, coming up with a very large body of content related to the subject matter that you're trying to talk about. So this is a really good example. Again, I love this example because it's contentious, it's really exciting twist, and he has put a lot of time and energy making him look professional and look and associate with high-level people in the industry. He's done a few really large online events and then actual physical gatherings as well, where he invites, because he himself is not the top ranking expert, he will invite them all into the same room and he will throw the event where for the first time they are all getting together. And then instantly, again, by throwing this event, he is associated with all these doctors and with all these PhDs and stuff. So it's a really fascinating way to leverage your your authority in industry when you don't have that much is by getting people who do have authority to come and talk to you and talk to your audience and invite them to come and talk. Because usually people want to be heard and stuff, so you do co-promotion, and this guy has really succeeded with that idea. So that's the idea of content marketing. You guys have any questions about these types of online business? Want me to go over anything a little more? Feeling good? Nice, and we're right at about the limit. So here's like the end of our notes. Where do I start? Um, I would say one of the most important things is to place yourself amongst those with similar goals and interests. I've heard that you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time around. And so I really try to cultivate who I'm spending my time with and making sure I'm educating myself and applying myself, which goes right into the next one. Always be learning, always be pushing yourself. Every day is a day in class and a day in school. For me, goal setting is a huge part of what I do. In the online business world, it's really easy to achieve burnout, which is like nobody wants to do, just overwork yourself. How I manage that is I set 2 goals each day that are going to push my personal business farther. And if I do those 2 goals, it could be making 1 phone call and finishing 1 email, or finishing a task and price checking something. But those 2 goals a day, I know if I do that, that's 5 a week, 20 a month. And over a quarter and a year, that's significant change that I can accomplish without spinning my mind out and without breaking my back or without beating myself up emotionally. That's a very realistic, tangible way to take yourself from being a person with an idea to being in 3 years a full-on business owner, is by doing 2 things per day that get you towards that. I've been very willing to fail fast as well. Having a question and going out and exploring in a low risk way can be an awesome way to just get the feedback that you need and see if this idea is legitimate. I bought like $800 worth of chanterelle mushrooms, like edible culinary mushrooms from Portland, and had them shipped in. This was this story I was telling. And I bought $800 worth of high-end food products and sold it for like $650 in 3 days. And I got to eat a bunch of the food. I ate like 5 pounds of the mushrooms. And some of my friends were like, "You are so crazy that you would fill your car with this like weird product and try to make money." And for me, it was more of an experiment. And like I can spend $200 at the bar in a weekend, like super easy. And so for me, risking a month's worth of rent to make 2 months worth of rent was an interesting proposition. And to do that while having fun, and I take immaculate notes and data on everything that I do. And so essentially I could calculate all the margin and everything. And one of my friends was like, "I can't believe you spent $200 to do this or lost $200. And for me, losing that $200 taught me so much. And I had 2 weeks worth of fun. And I was the authority figure on chanterelle mushrooms for a brief second in Durango. If you wanted them, I was the guy to talk to, which, was really fun. And ultimately, it came out to be a slight loss, but I learned a bunch. So don't be afraid of your failures. Document everything. Be willing to take risks. Moving on to the next one, my father talks a lot about the idea of champion advocates. Look out for these people in your community that really care about you personally and care about your vision and your business's success. As an example, I will say I have a person who refers my services. I've never done anything for this person, but this person has referred me to multiple clients, and I've made probably $25,000 off those clients. Okay, so she is a champion advocate of my business, even though she's not one of my customers. Every year I send her a Christmas card, right? Like, know who these people are and take care of them. Tell them what your needs are and what you're looking for. If you're doing something different, let them know, because they'll probably keep sharing that with the world and their network. Yeah, going back to always be learning and educate yourself, build media skills, learn computer skills. Business and online learning can be frustrating. But also, if you are running into a problem, there's probably 1,000 other people who have ran into that problem, and there's answers on Google. So be like big Google learner, Wikipedia learner, YouTube learner. I mean, it's amazing what you can get away with nowadays with the right question. It's all about asking the right question. And we get frustrated. It's harder to think. And so if you can back up and ask a different question, sometimes the internet knowledge machine will spit out a more appropriate answer. So yeah, definitely keep uh, always be learning. Um, so at the bottom, I have some links to the websites that I showed you guys. There's links to everything in the documents. If I just talk about any references, 4 Hour Work Week is a really influential book in this scene. I don't like it too much because I'm not a huge fan of like the idea of just totally not working. I like working, you know, I like applying myself and making the world a better place. So I'm not huge on the idea of removing myself from work completely. But as far as designing incredibly efficient systems that I want to participate in, Tim Ferriss has some really interesting ideas about designing location independent systems and how to just exercise your brain. Um, Johnny FD is a really cool guy that I got to meet in Chiang Mai, Thailand. He's a digital nomad who essentially was broke and traveling the world, and he did everything he could to keep traveling. And over like 6 or 7 years of traveling, he learned how to run businesses online. And he is one of the most influential people in the e-commerce and digital nomad community right now because he's very open about his challenges and successes. He does things like he publishes his year-end financial reviews and talks about how he's diversified his income online every year, and he shows numbers. That's part of the community as we talk about, because it is a very freedom-based situation, whether you want to live in Colorado or you want to travel while working. The idea is freedom. At the end of the day, is the quality of lifestyle. That's why we're doing this. So how to help share information about how not we can interfere in each other's niche industries, but how we can live the lifestyle we want to live at the end of the day. So Johnny FD is a really good resource. The Nomad List is really cool way to think about the world. The Nomad List ranks all the cities around the globe based on like how nice they are to live, the quality of air, and then the Wi-Fi speed, because it's all targeted to working, okay? And so here it's like, okay, cool, Bali's 1,300 a month, you know, Bangkok's 1,400, and it's just for fun. We'll type in Durango, and we'll see how we rank on the international scale. Traveling isn't a super big thing right now, but when that happens again, I'm sure people will be excited to get out. I was not bringing it up, huh? Let's try Grand Junction. Let's see what the Nomad review of Grand Junction is. 200 reviews, and it's 3.3 stars out of 5. But it's funny, you can kind of see how people rate different places. It's really fascinating. So it's an idea if you wanted to go work somewhere again. In Thailand, I was living at about $700 a month USD, and spending Thai baht while making USD through PayPal. Because I'm billing my clients USD but spending local money. So that's the idea, is there's a whole scene of people who travel around the world. When I was in Chiang Mai, there's about 3,000 expats all living and working in Chiang Mai together for the winter. And so you go into any coffee shop and you sit down and you say hi to somebody. Instead of getting the answer like, hey, what do you like doing for fun, or what are you doing? And people have never left the town. In these expat communities, everybody gave up everything that they knew for something else. And in this particular community, is their business and their freedom and their sovereignty in a way. And they gave up everything comfortable and everything known to jump out into the world and go excel and be cunning. And so it was really, really fascinating environment to be in. So I'd consider you, or encourage you to follow the digital nomad community, because even though they're travel oriented, all the tools and things that they're leveraging is what we would leverage here in Western Colorado, being remote and hard to access. As long as we have an internet connection. So they have a lot of similar tools. Yeah, so that was just something interesting to think about. You should touch base with your small business development center every quarter, at least. I highly encourage that. I'm really excited to be working with Western Slope Startup Week for the same reason. Any groups you can be a part of to help put your heads together is huge. Last things here at the bottom are graphic design, hosting, and then copywriting, which would be just any written work on your site, people that I would recommend that I work with. Like this guy here, you like those Google search listings? This is the guy that wrote those, is Austin. So he's the one who got that guy up on the first page of Google based on the written part. Yeah, J3 Media here in town is host here at Durango. I work with Harrison over there a lot. I do more of the building and e-commerce, whereas he does the server side stuff. So if you don't like working with GoDaddy or HostGator or whoever, computer systems, and you want to work with a local Colorado hosting company, I'd recommend J3. Yeah, then graphic design work, Jake is really good over at Subtle Butter. Take a look at his work. He will impress you. Yeah, and that's my massive amount of information. So let me know if you guys have questions now.
That was excellent, Alex. We're a little over, which is totally
Yeah,
fine because we're virtual, right? And
yeah.
but for anyone else on the line, Alex said he has a little bit more time. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask.
Yeah, please chime in, and maybe we don't have to do the text thing as much too. If people have questions, just chime in.
And one of the things that stuck out to me, you were talking about towards the end, especially, was the idea of testing. I wholeheartedly agree with that when you're thinking about trying to a lot of the different aspects of what you talked about. Really, would you say that testing your ideas is something you're doing constantly across a lot of these different topics that you talked about?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Testing. The other word is like due diligence, right? Like thoroughly thinking through your idea and the perceived need, and is that actual need? And in some circumstances, is there like, okay, I can do this, but in what way legally can I do it? And then there's all these kinds of constraints. And so there's a huge process called due diligence that I go through with all my ideas. I run business plans and Excel sheets. I can whip those up really fast and run projections on 18 and 24-month returns. And so essentially, I have an idea. It's like, okay, $5 a pop, we multiply this times 18 times that. Is like, cool, we're going to make money in 18 months or not. And I can really quickly run like Excel calculations to see, like, based on math, what an industry could look like. And then actually doing it is really important. And instead of calling all the restaurants in town and telling them I bought all those chanterelle mushrooms, I just showed up with them. And so we surprised everybody because I'm not a talker really, like I'm like a doer. And instead of telling everybody that they're coming in a week, it was like, boom, here they are. Do you want them now? Smell them, look at them. They're beautiful. They're fresh. And ultimately it was a loss, but it was a whole bunch of fun. And so by failing at that too, in a way, the fail helps me understand anybody who distributes in and out of this area. So I chose a particularly weird product to try to market just as an experiment. So yes, there is a point where you have to do math and your due diligence and run a business plan and calculations, but then until you try something and you have skin in the game, there's no way to tell if it's actually going to work. And as soon as you get the signs that it's not working, just adapt. It's not the end of the world. I have provided so many different services over my career that it bolsters me. I have a large quiver of tools and skills that I can rely on. But I've been adaptable because every day I don't use the same skill or I don't use the same tool because, again, I follow the need. Yeah, does that answer the question? So yeah, fail, learn, and yeah, adapt.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had a dog showdown.
No, no worries. Yeah. Yeah, great question. Failure is an essential part of business and experimenting. Anybody else? All right, let me know if anybody else has questions. Again, my name is Alex Pullen. My contact information is in the doc. at the top of the document, and then also in our chat, I have put my contact information. My website is my name.com, Alex Pullen, Pullen.com. If you guys have more questions, feel free to send me an email. I'm happy to answer any more questions that you have.